Welcome to Create Momentum for Positive Mindset. Today, my guest is David Bijli. David Bijli is a photographer and a content creator. How are you, David?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm all good. How's your weekend been?
Yeah, very busy, just sorting out a few things. I'm kind of between London and Dorset, so I'm up and down the M3 a lot at the moment. But yeah, very good. Kind of good to try and get everything done. I'm still behind with a few things. I'm still going to try and drop a couple of YouTube videos as soon as I can. I'm also got to finish publishing a few photos as well. So yeah, very busy, but doing well.
All right, it's great that you're doing that. So, please tell me about your journey. That how did you, from a working profession, you come into
Mm.
photography? How did you manage to do that?
Okay, quite an interesting story actually. So I have been working in the pharmaceutical industry for about 20 years. So ever since my early 20s, I went into the pharmaceutical industry, which was great. It was a good industry at the time. It gave me a lot of freedom. It gave me a lot of autonomy in the role, which is something that's very, very important. I think as a personality, I'm somebody who doesn't really like to be constrained by having to be in the office for a 9 to 5 or having a boss breathing down my neck continually. And I was kind of doing that industry for 20 years, and I thought it was really what I wanted to do. However, um, I was very lucky in that my last employer paid for me to do a diploma at Henley Business School. And if you're thinking around looking at a kind of elite business school, it's more about actually teaching you about yourself than it is about teaching you about various business models. And through a lot of reflection, through a lot of things that I did, I kind of realized that for me, probably doing a regular 9 to 5 job wasn't fulfilling. Now, the thing with that is that obviously, yeah, you have to do certain things because obviously if you want to sustain a certain lifestyle, you have to live a certain way. Um, but really for me, one thing that was always neglected was the creative side. And I think that that creative side is something that's really important for anybody to have. And it's the same, even so, with people that want to go into business. So I know that you speak a lot with entrepreneurs and you speak a lot with business people. And I think that people that are real creatives are the ones that are the real leaders. And what I mean by that is that it's something that at school um, is kind of, to an extent, pushed out of certain children. They want you just to be listening. They want you just to be complying. Whereas in reality, the people that really get to the top in whatever field they're doing are the ones that look to really develop their creative side. And I think from my perspective, I realized that it was something I was always passionate about. I used to do photography quite a lot when I was younger at college. I used to be in the photography club and I used to make some really great images. I was also interested in art. However, twists and turns aside, you kind of get pushed away from that. You kind of get pushed into the mentality of car and house and promotions and better jobs and mindsets like that, which in all honesty isn't very constructive. Now, this is something that people really need to think about. Realistically, we are going to be working, our generation, till we're in our 70s. So if you leave university, if you go to university and you leave in your early 20s, that is over 50 years. Let that sink in for a second. Over 50 years. Now, most people work, if you're lucky, 8 to 9 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's if you're lucky. Most people work more. So that is probably over a third of your life for those 50 years on a 9 to 5 you're waking. That's half of your waking life. You are in a job. So is it better to do a job that you're interested in? Is it better to do a job that you're enthused about? Or is it better to do a job because it pays a little bit more in the short term? Because trust me, if you do something that you're not passionate about and you're pushing yourself to do it, you're going to burn out, you're going to become disinterested, your performance is going to flag. And very quickly, what's going to happen is that the driving force that got you there is going to start to wane. So what's going to happen off the back of that is that you're going to be less productive. You're going to be, and as you get older, I think as well, pardon my French, but your tolerance for bullshit goes down as well. So when you're talking about, having to go into a meeting with a boss who knows less than you, talking about things you're not really interested in, it's to have to put up with 50 years of that is very, very difficult. So my thinking was, I was made redundant just over a year ago. I'm lucky in that my financial situation is relatively stable, that I can invest more time into gap filling the areas that I couldn't do before. And what I mean by that, and I think being an artist, whatever medium of art that is, be it acting, music, art, photography, poetry, writing, whatever, there's a few things that you've got to bear in mind. First thing, you've got to be true to yourself. You've got to really know what it is you want to create. And as a creator, you've got to know what you want to create. Second thing, what the real talent with any kind of artistic media is being able to have a vision and an idea, and then being able to translate that vision and idea in a way that other people will receive that. That's the real magic of it, if that makes sense. So that's a very brief rundown.
Yeah, of course, it makes sense because if you are working for, there's a simple saying that 9 to 5 only makes you can survive, but your 6 to 10 can make a fortune. So
Mm-hmm.
I am as soon as I saw your video on YouTube that
Mm-hmm.
you wanted to be financially free rather than to be into 9 to 5 job.
Mm-hmm.
I got impressed by that because a lot of time you work your whole life and
Mm-hmm.
you won't get you just paying your bills, and day by day your life is going on. You're not achieving anything. You don't have a freedom. What you're doing, you're selling your time.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great thing. You notice that you are gonna be financially free when you
Mm-hmm.
wanted. So what inspired you about photography?
Okay, great question, actually. I think it was something that I always enjoyed doing. It was around when I was a teenager that I really got into photography, and it's around kind of the magic. And in those days, it was all processing film in a darkroom, and it was great where you could go and get, and the images that we were producing were black and white, and they were quite grainy, and they had a real kind of edge to them, very different to the kind of things that you would make with a camera that you would take to the Boots chemist. And I don't know if you remember back in the day, you would take your film to Boots chemist, and then a couple of days later they'd give you a pack of your holiday photos or whatever. um, and I just thought it's a great medium, actually, to be able to create. And I think when I came back to it again a few years ago, probably 2 or 3 years ago now, it had all changed completely. So it was about understanding and learning the medium of digital and how that works. And what was a big inspiration for me is I happened to meet a former very famous artist and photographer who wants to remain nameless, and for various personal reasons. And he kind of helped me along the way, and he kind of explained the journey and what he did and how it worked and everything like that. And I think what is great as well when you're doing photography and creating, it's the buzz and the energy you get when you've created something. So I can talk you through a couple of a recent shoot setup that came from a concept and an idea, where it was inspired from, and then how the images came out off the back of that. So it was kind of a process. And then when you finish the process and you get the end result, it's a really fantastic feeling. And, you know, you can be buzzing from achieving something like that for weeks. And that's the kind of thing that money can't buy. And, you know, you were saying around the 9 to 5, I mean, I was earning quite good money. And what I was finding was, a lot of the time, in order to kind of, and it wasn't necessarily with my roles in my last few roles, but certain roles outside of the pharmaceutical industry and certain roles that I did, which were very high paying roles in finance and various business roles that I also undertook as well over the years. You're earning good money, but because you're having to deal with a lot of stress, you're having to deal with a lot of just general day-to-day irritants and unpleasantnesses, you find that you spend more money as well on things that you don't really need just to justify that. And I've known people that have been working in the city in banking, and they spend money on sports cars that they never use, or they use for 6 months and then they sit in a garage. They go down to Dorset in Poole Harbour and they buy a boat that they might use twice a year that's costing them 10-15 grand a year to maintain, and they just do that for the status. Doing that for 50 years, I don't think so. So yeah, and
So
that
you
was it.
wanted to be happy. That's why you have changed your career.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of at the moment really. I'm not. I'm also realistic as well. I mean, being in the. Have you ever heard the saying of a rock star industry?
Sorry?
Have you heard of the saying something is a rock star industry?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so the saying is certain industries are what's classed as a rock star industry, and what that means is that you see people that are very famous at the very top, who are like the rock stars, but then there are lots of people lower down the chain that aren't actually making a living. Now, I wouldn't say or advise anybody to leave your 9 to 5 and go and pursue your passion, but what I would say is bear in mind that it's always worth taking that in mind. Now, with my photography, yeah, it's going to be something hopefully that will be generating an income, but I'm not relying on thinking, actually, you know what, I need to be earning a certain amount from it, because I think that kind of takes away from my journey, if that makes sense. And
Yeah,
I
of
think
course.
that if you're passionate and you're interested, then the money will come. That's the big take home I want to relay on to your listeners, is that if it's all money, 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 it's not going to work in the long run, because you can have that mentality for a few years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, but you've got to be something that's got to keep you busy and entertained for a very long time. And if you're doing something you're not interested in, it's going to be difficult.
Of course. Then you're going to complain about it, and all your life you are complaining because you see, if you go to Oxford Circus, just for
Mm-hmm.
example, on a busy
Yeah.
day, and you just smile to the people, people got
Mm-hmm.
so much frustrated with their job, which they don't like, but they're still doing it. Many people do it. That's the reason I find out my niche, what I am better in. So that's why I like to talk with people. So talking
Mm-hmm.
with people give me a lot of satisfaction, and that's the reason I started the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just networking with different people and all walks of life. It could be a photographer, it could be
Mm-hmm.
educationist,
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneur, anybody. So that is much better because I will never feel myself that I'm exhausted or tired. But when people are working, they're working doing long hours, and they're not fulfilling. It's not fulfilling for them, but they still
Yeah.
carry on. So, apart from photography, so what are your hobbies are?
Me, oh, plenty, too many to mention. So sort of things, fitness, sports, massively into sports, playing and following. Um, Motor racing, so I do car and motorbike track days quite regularly in the UK and abroad. So yeah, it's that kind of thing. Mountain biking, cycling. Um, Yeah, so I'm quite an active person. I think it's always good to keep very well rounded. I think that too many people that just stick to one thing as well. It's nice to kind of vary it up, kind of releases the pressure from other things.
Yes, that's
But what I did
absolutely.
want to say with regards to my photography is I very much said I don't want it to be high pressure. And the thing with it is that if you go and you're somebody who wants to go and in anything and wants to push to earn lots of money, and in the arts as well, you're putting yourself out there for open criticism. I mean, you can go out there and you can go and do a photo shoot, and the client might not like the photos. You hear stories of wedding photographers who spend hours and hours and hours through no fault of their own. The images of the bride don't, because the bride thinks that they look a certain way that they look, and then it becomes the photographer's fault. So, it's so for me, I kind of stick to shooting what I want to shoot, and if that generates money from it, then it's great. I'm selling some prints. If people want to sell, want to buy prints, then I've got some prints of some of my photos. I've taken some photos recently, which I'm going to approach some Porsche garages with a model that I know and my Porsche car, which I'll show you. And I'm going to approach some Porsche garages. Hopefully somebody might be interested in taking those on for their campaign. Or hopefully if they're interested, they might hire me for some campaigns and some lifestyle type photos. So that's kind of the direction I want to go in. And
Definitely.
yeah, there is a lot of money in it, but I think if you go out there with the mercenary attitude of I want to chase money and I want to be rich and I want to be rich, you might be disappointed. So I think do what you enjoy doing, share your content, share your work, and hopefully that will lead to something. It might be that I take some of my prints into my local Porsche garage. Um, guys, what do you think of these pictures? They might turn around and say, actually, do you know what? We want to commission you to do a load of photos for our garages. Take some photos of our cars, take some photos with some models, male and female models in Bond Street or wherever with our cars, advertising lifestyle type work. And we'll pay you, big companies. I mean, Nike, for example, they won't bat an eyelid at spending £3 million to a creative for a campaign.
Of course.
You know,
Would you like
you
to
think
show?
if you can get into that, that's where you can earn serious good money doing good things. But then, as I said, it's a rock star industry.
Yeah.
How many people want to get to the top? And it's the same in music. If you think I want to be a top, I want to be the next Justin Bieber, you're not doing it because you're enjoying it, then you're going to fall off eventually. But if you keep producing, you keep busy, you keep networking, eventually it will come.
Of course, but people don't understand another thing, which is you don't always have to be the number one in the game. Like number two, if you take an Apple example, Apple is the number one at the moment brand
Yeah.
in the world. But Tim Cook was the number two or number
Mhm.
three, but he's still, I mean, he's well off. And again, if you take the
Yeah.
example of Microsoft, um, Bill Gates has given the CEO to Stephen Bloomberg. So he was
Mhm.
not the number one guy. There is entrepreneur, there is entrepreneur. You can be number two, number three guy, and you can still make it. There is no harm to be number one, number two, or number three if you are making it. So would you like to show a piece of work of yours?
Yeah, absolutely. I can show you. Bear with me a second. I'm just going to show you. Actually, just going to find it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a shoot, and I'm going to talk you through the creative concept behind it and the end results. I'll show you some of the images and the end results. And this is why I was explaining earlier around the whole process behind, creative and being a creative, because the process behind it is actually what I think is all about being a creative. It's not just literally taking the images. And you get a lot of photographers that are just what I would call camera operators. They're literally guys who can operate a camera really well, but they haven't got the creative side. So let me try and see how I can share my screen. Okay. Can you
Oh,
see my screen?
e- sorry. Yeah, yeah, I can see your screen. Yeah.
Okay. So this is a photo from my last, one of the photo of many from my last photo shoot.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to do with this was a photo shoot with a model that I know.
Yeah.
Uh, can you hear me? Is the audio gone
Yeah, yeah, I
or?
can hear you properly. Yeah.
So what I was looking to do with this was I was looking to showcase my Porsche car, and I was looking to showcase it with a model, but I was looking to go away from the traditional images that you see on teenage boys' walls of a girl with a sports car. I was looking to use a different kind of lighting. So what I did was I set up some gel lighting. I was looking to go with a very 80s feel. So there's a artist who's a big influencer of mine called Patrick Nigel, from the 1980s, and his work was very bold, very bright colors, very glamorous kind of setting. And I kind of was looking to do something that was kind of neon and bright, but also with the car. So this is one of the images from that. I'll show you some others. So this is another one. This actually went to print, and I gave this image as a print to the model. What do you think of them, Shahzad?
It is absolutely nice. I like your work.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to do it very differently from your original, kind of a girl draped over a car. I wanted it to look a bit different. So I was really pleased with this because I went with the concepts, and I'll show you some work of Patrick Nigel, and how I wanted to make it look bright and neon and punchy, but also with that theme. So kind of a bit of unconventional as well. Um, I think with photography, what the trick is mastering lighting, and with that kind of concept, it's one of those ones where the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. Does that make sense?
Of course.
So yeah, so it's all about experimenting and playing around and trying some things. And this is some of the ones that weren't with the neon lighting from that. So again, I went with quite a contrasty black and white image with this, with sort of quite strong whites, quite strong darks, to kind of make the image more dramatic. Does that make sense?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. And this was another one as well. And again, if you can see, I went to make the image as dramatic as possible. So I wanted to try and make this as though it had kind of motion in it without there actually being any motion.
Amazing.
Yeah. And this was another one. This was again more similar to your traditional kind of shot, but again, I wanted it again to be very dramatic. So I wanted to make the hair quite highlighty, to look as though her hair is actually in motion when she's throwing her hair back, if that makes sense. So yeah, so that was a recent shoot that I wanted to share. This is another one that's gone to print, and the prints are available for sale on this one. So this is Stonehenge. For those of you who aren't from the UK, it's a historic sort of what would you call Stonehenge?
Stonehenge. I mean, it's all a stone
Historic
place.
monument.
Yeah, yeah, monument. Yeah, a
Historic
landmark.
monument.
A landmark.
Yeah, yeah, something like that. So for those of you who don't know, Stonehenge basically is in sort of the south of England, and the interesting thing with it is that nobody actually knows how those stones got there. And it's fascinating because the actual stones are from not thousands, hundreds of miles away. And they've been there for thousands of years, and nobody knows how they got there. And I can't remember, but some of the stones weigh tens of tons, and they've been placed on the ground on top of other stones, and they've lasted for nobody really knows how long. So it's fascinating. So what I wanted to do with this shot is I wanted to try and capture kind of a mystical, mysterious sort of feel to it. So kind of with this, it was kind of around, what would you describe it as? Kind of like a fairy tale kind of, I wanted it to have a kind of mystique about the image. So this is how that came across. What do you think?
Absolutely incredible.
And I'll show you one more as well. Um, so this was a guy I used to train with. He's a fitness model called Ramon. And again, I wanted to go with quite an artsy shots with him. He's done a lot of fitness modeling, but I wanted to do it quite artistic. So I like the way that the shadows form sort of leading lines from the railings on the right onto the middle. And kind of, again, I went for a quite a high contrast, punchy black and white to kind of adds drama to that. So that's, again, how I went with those kind of shots. So I'll stop sharing now if I can work out how to do that. Okay, stop sharing. No. Can you see me?
No, your photo is gone.
My
I think
photo's
you,
gone.
if you can,
I'll tell you what. I'll leave it up. Which photo do you want me to leave up in the background?
it's fine. Absolutely fine.
Okay.
If you, I mean, if you come off the X, press there, it will be, I think it will come back.
Which one? Stop
If
share.
you come out the Photoshop image now, that's fine. Absolutely,
Yeah.
it's a great
Okay.
work, amazing. As soon as I saw your picture on Instagram, so I
Mm.
sent you a message. Amazing pictures,
Which
and
one do you like?
absolutely.
Which ones do you like?
I like the first one with the model in the Porsche.
Okay. The
That was,
Porsche
I
ones, yeah.
find it amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love cars, so that's the reason.
Oh, okay. What cars are you into?
Because in UAE, I mean, my parents live in UAE, so my father used to
Oh,
have
very nice.
so a spare part shop. So you used to bring
Okay.
high end, low end cars, all sorts of cars. So, like my favorite one is CL 500 AMG. That's my
Oh,
favorite
very
car.
nice. Very, very,
So,
very nice.
so I like Range Rovers quite. Range Rovers, they're nice as
Okay.
well.
Yeah.
So that sort of those sort of cars. So I want to ask you another thing we talked about
Yes.
in between. What do you consider as to be a financially free? What is financially freedom in your term?
Financially freedom in my term is, I can go through it in a couple of ways. I can answer that as a concept, or I can answer that as a in reality. So I'll answer both. So as a concept, I think it means a situation where your passive income matches your expenditure, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of
So
course.
you've got a way of generating income without um, needing to go through the uncertainty of having an employed job. I think that's what people will generally constitute that as being. And in reality, you might have your mortgage plus your bills, and if you've got some kind of passive income coming in over and above that, I think that's very important to have in this day and age because of just the general instability of things.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, what you said, I agree with you. So after this, we'll wrap up. My last question will be that what message do you have for audience you want to give to people or your colleagues or anybody, a message for them?
Yeah, so everybody, stay true to yourselves, follow your hearts, but also be realistic that you do have to generate a paycheck to survive. Everybody needs to be a constructive member of society, but don't be afraid to be a constructive member of society in the way that you want to be, more so than the way people prescribe it to you to be. And I think as well, it's something that I think a lot of the nations outside of Europe need to catch up a little bit on, that there are options outside of your traditional career paths that you can go. I think growing up in this country, being multiracial and seeing, growing up in a predominantly British, white, upper middle class area, you can see the attitudes are very different amongst British European people to money and income and careers than it is amongst Asian people and African people. So I think that maybe people need to realign themselves a little bit more for their environment.
Absolutely.
And last but by no means least, follow me on Instagram and YouTube.
Yeah.
I'm sure
I
Shazad
will
is.
give the link in the description. So please, everybody support David. So he's a great photographer and a great person. So thank you very much, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I will definitely catch up with you later as well.
Fantastic. Excellent. Okay.